Oops, no, not recording. What's going on? I don't want to record. Record. There we go. How do I stop it?
The meeting is being recorded, so it's
Yes,
just
the
letting
meeting
you
is
know
being
that it's being
Oh,
No, the
I
meeting
thought
is
I
being
did that.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
We
Yeah,
were
so
notified that
sorry.
it was being recorded.
Sorry, I was just getting home from picking Sean up from track practice. So I'm just gonna go inside here so I can not be sitting in the car.
No problem. So
Sorry.
it's 6, the meeting's called to order at 6:31, and Alex is working as our secretary tonight. Thank you very much, Alex.
And just a reminder, if everyone could mute themselves upon entering, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Alex, can you call the roll?
Yes, so I'm gonna try to view it. Okay, so if you're here, go ahead and unmute yourself and say here when I call your name. Again, we're just taking attendance for people that are active CAC board members. So those of you that are guests, you don't have to let me know that you're here. It's just those that I need to call and make sure that they are. So go ahead and keep yourself on mute otherwise. Ready? Heather Plotsky is here. Heather Marshall, are you here?
Here.
Okay. Tristy let us know that she would not be here. I'm here. Rosabelle, are you here?
Rosebud will be coming late.
Okay. I'll type that in. David Choi, are you here?
Yep. Here.
Sorry, it's hard for me to see all the screens. Jill Cooley, are you here?
Yes.
Okay. Kia Edwards, are you here? Okay, I'm gonna go with absent for Kia. Heather Osborne, are you here?
Here.
Okay. Allison Smith, are you here?
Yes, here.
Okay. Devin Green, are you here? Devin Green, absent. Okay. Chris Coriat, are you here?
Here.
Okay. Nadine Clark, are you here? Nadine Clark. Absent. Okay. Rebecca Mendoza.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was muted.
Oh, Nadine's here.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, Nadine is here. Rebecca Mendoza, are you here? Absent. Okay. Kate Whelan, are you here? Kate Whelan is absent. Nita, are you here?
Here.
Okay. Jeanette Anderson, I saw. Greg, I saw. And Deb Williford, are you here?
She's at another parent meeting and will be here momentarily.
Okay, late. All right. Perfect.
I'm here. It's Jill. I don't know if you got me.
Yeah, I said yes.
Yep,
for
I got you. Perfect. Okay, awesome.
Great. Heather, you're up. Heather Marshall for welcome and introduction.
Okay, great. Thank you, Heather P. Now is the time for public input. During public input, this is an opportunity for members of the public to share comments and concerns with the CAC. In the interest of time, speakers are limited to 3 minutes each, with a total of 15 minutes allotted for public input. Please respect student and personnel privacy. CAC members and district staff cannot respond to individual concerns in this forum, but will take your contact information for future follow-up. The committee in this section takes no action. Is there any public input at this time? And feel free to put it in the chat as well.
looks like Linda maybe has one. Linda, you can unmute.
No, I don't. Sorry. I'm on my phone, so hitting
Oh,
buttons as I'm driving. Sorry.
okay.
Okay. Okay. I don't see anything in the chat. And there were no public testimonies forms submitted either. Going once, twice. Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item. So approval of minutes for February of last month, 2022. Did all CAC members and district staff get a chance to look over the minutes for February? Hopefully
did.
so. Can I get a call for motion for February minutes?
I move to accept the minutes.
Thank you, Jill. Can I get a second to motion for approval of the February minutes?
Yes, approval for them.
That's Allison.
Thank you, Allison.
You
Yes,
bet.
Allison Smith. Thank you. Okay. Are there? Sorry, I forgot.
Is there any discussion?
All in favor to approve? Yeah, all in favor to approve the minutes for
I,
February 2022.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think that's everyone. Thank you. Are there any nays? Okay. Motion carried. Approval for February 2022 minutes. All right, next item, action item, continuous action item to remain in Zoom for April for our next CAC business meeting. Can I get a motion to approve that we stay on Zoom for next month's CAC business meeting?
I motion
Any
to,
CAC?
I motion to approve it. I'm allowed to do that while I'm
Thank
taking
you,
notes, right?
Alex.
Correct.
Yes.
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Alex. Can I get a second motion?
Heather Osborne will
Was
second.
that? Great. Thank you, Heather. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Any nays? Okay. Motion carried to approve that we stay in Zoom for our April CAC business meeting. All right. Back over to you, Heather P.
Okay. The next item is district liaison report. Jeanette, you have a general update before the, I know Greg has and you have a presentation as well, but do you have a general update for us?
So we have our secondary director, Tiffany King is with us, and she's going to provide a brief overview of some of the exciting parent night events that have been hosted recently. So I'll turn it over to her.
Hi, everybody. Not much, just a recap of the 3 general parent information nights. They've all been completed. We had one for our incoming middle school families, incoming high school, and then last week we hosted our Pathways to Success, which is our post-secondary info night. And all of our sites are in the midst of hosting their individual site special education evenings. I know our parent liaison is at one right now for Mount Carmel, and Westviews is later this evening as well. So really great turnout to all of those. We're averaging about 30 to 40 families at each of them. So great turnout and excited to keep those going year after year.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. With that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, and hopefully you can all see our special education inclusion update that's titled Community Advisory Committee, March 15th, 2022. Can you guys all see that? Okay, and with that, we'll let Mr. Mizell get started.
Okay, thank you, Jeanette. So the question is often asked when I'm visiting school sites or out in our community, Why has inclusion become such a point of focus in PUSD? I've even heard the question from some of you, right? And it's a fair question, if we're being honest, because for a long time, inclusion wasn't a focal point in our district. It really wasn't. So we're going to spend some time on this topic tonight. Next slide. Yep, there we go. So we'll start with the law. And if you're an attorney, forgive me, because I'm going to butcher this. But I mean, here's a quick skim and scan, right? Civil rights legislation has been passed that requires us. It doesn't recommend, it doesn't suggest, it requires us to increase the inclusion of people with disabilities in all aspects of community life. And that includes schools. And I think it's really, really important for all of us to remember that this legislation goes back now almost 50 years. Still, in spite of, right, that rich history, in 2017, 2018, California had one of the lowest inclusion rates for students with disabilities in the country, 56% compared to the national average of 63%. California ranked 40th out of 47 states on this measure. So when we think about least restrictive environment, right, the law is pretty clear. To the maximum extent appropriate, oftentimes you'll hear me say possible, children with disabilities, including children in public and private institutions or other care facilities, are educated with children who are non-disabled. Not a suggestion, not a good idea, right? This is the law. And special classes, separate schooling, and other removal of children with disabilities from the regular educational environment occurs only if the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. So unfortunately, as you'll see in a few moments, on some of the CDE targets related to LRE, PUSD doesn't even achieve the state average, right? So when we think about LRE, we've got to be prepared to answer the question, why? Why can't this student's education, even with supplementary aids and services, be achieved in the regular educational class environment? Another why question. Why must the student be removed from his or her typically developing peers for specially designated instruction? We have to be able to answer these questions when we separate our students. This statement can't just be a restatement, right? We can't answer these questions with, the label of the disability, like the disability category, or the setting. Instead, we have to focus on the educational needs of the student that requires the removal from their non-disabled peers. That's the standard of the law. LRE requires special education services to be delivered in regular education classrooms, except when the nature and severity of the disability of the child is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. Okay, so before we go to this next slide on the FCMAT, I just want to be real clear on the law. 50 years, lots and lots of case law over the decades, crystal clear. There's not a lot of ambiguity here, right? To the maximum extent possible, our kids should be learning alongside their non-disabled peers, and it should be exceptional when they're not, right? There has to be great context. Okay, on this slide, I'm going to pass it over to Heather.
Hi. So I've shared a little bit of this information in previous CAC meetings, but just a little recap. In November of 2016, the Poway Unified Board commissioned a review and a study by California's FCMAT team, which stands for Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team. And they took a deep dive into all aspects of our special education programming. And it took them until August of 2017 to produce their written report. And that is public information. So if you were to Google FCMAT, FCMAT, Poway Unified School District, that is available for your review. It's about a little over a 50-page report, and it's pretty user-friendly to read. What they said was that after they reviewed all of our programs, preschool through adult transition, they said you really do have a strong continuum of service options for your students from preschool through age 22. However, your programs are, your delivery model, your program models are just very traditional. And so when they use that word traditional, it wasn't intended to be a compliment. It stung a bit because we are pretty proud of our programming in Poway Unified. Many families moved to our district for our special ed programs, but it gave us a focus on the work that we needed to do moving forward. So their recommendations were that we really needed to continue our efforts to meet our least restrictive environment targets by having our students with disabilities in programs with their general education peers instead of more restrictive placements as much as possible. Focusing on increasing the percentage of students with disabilities who are accessing general education programs while they're still receiving their special education services that they need. And they gave us a charge to move forward in coming up with a plan, not just coming up with the plan, but implementing that plan within the next 2 years. And they just really thought our progress towards LRE had been too slow. So we met that 2-year target by implementing our SAI model schools and that work forward. And then now this year we have all of our elementary schools as inclusive practices schools. And then Tiffany has shared with you in the past all the work at the middle school level of our inclusive practices middle schools and our high schools who are already doing that inclusive practices work as well. Next slide.
Thank you, Heather. So you have the law. Again, no ambiguity, pretty straightforward stuff. Now you have this independent outside report, the FCMAT, in 2017, right? And it very clearly, right, very clearly delineates the priorities that we need to set forward toward creating more inclusive opportunities for our students to learn alongside their typical peers, right? So, and in addition to that, now there's this data, decades of data and research that shows that, oh, go figure, inclusion is good for students with disabilities and good for students without disabilities. It's good for all kids. So 2 recent reports, and they're highlighted here, offer insight, right, into the promise of this work and guidance for how to do it. A 2017 report from a team at Harvard University found, and I'll quote, clear and consistent evidence that inclusive educational settings can confer substantial short and long-term benefits for students with and without disabilities. These benefits include positive social benefits for all. Students better relate to a variety of people, right? Reduced stigma. Everyone's viewed as having a unique learning strength and need. Increase access to preparation for diploma-bound UC, CSU, A to G courses, fewer absences, and better post-secondary outcomes. The 2018 report to the right that was presented to Congress and the President from the National Council on Disability reaffirmed these findings from the 2017 report and also recommended the implementation of universal design for learning, multi-tiered systems of supports, culturally responsive instruction, cooperative learning, flexible grouping, and collaboration strategies. So actually went into kind of how, right? Not just that inclusion is good for all students, but some of the best practices that support it, that improve the experience for all of our children who are learning together. Next slide. So on this slide, I just highlighted, again, one quote. This doesn't come from the 2 studies previous, but from another, right? And it's kind of, when you look at 1995, it feels old, but it was not just 1995. This research was corroborated in 2008, 2011, right? Like it's over and over. And you can read the slide. Self-contained classrooms are controversial because not only do students in self-contained classrooms interact on a very limited basis, if at all, with students who do not have disabilities, but also they do not make greater educational gains than students with disabilities who are included in general education classes, right? So more simply stated, if you put a child with a disability in a general education class, they're going to do at least as well as the child who's separated from their typical peers, right? At least as well. But when you remove them, right, for no academic gain, on the social and on multiple other fronts, right, we pay a high price for that. Next slide. All right, I'm going to invite Jeanette to explain the 14 factors that CDE requires us to report out.
Okay, so these numbers that you see here are part of what we call our annual performance review. So every year, every district receives a report from the state of California based on the data that the district has submitted to the state. And what these, what we call indicators, so each of these numbers is an indicator. And what they are intended to do is show us the overall health of the programs that we offer within the district. So you'll see everything on here from our graduation rates to LRE, or least restrictive environment, to post-secondary outcome goals, including metrics that relate to how well our kids do when they leave us. So there's a lot of research the district does. They provide information to the state of California, and then the state of California generates this. It's kind of like a report card for our department. And so when we look at our LRE on these slides, you can see 5A, 5B, and 5C. Those are all metrics that relate to how well we are meeting state targets in terms of including students as much as possible in the general education program. 6A and 6B are a similar metric, but they're related more to our preschool programs. And so these tend to be some of the more important factors that we consider when we're looking at the health of our programs, simply because, as Mr. Mizell pointed out, we know that how much students are included in the general education program really does have a very significant impact on their overall trajectory. You know, the quality of life when they leave us, how well they're able to acquire and maintain employment, go on to colleges or trade schools. So these are really important for us, and we reflect on them annually, and we develop plans to address every indicator that we did not meet. So looking at our LRE for preschool, our preschool LRE is based on how many of our kids are enrolled in a general education program and receiving the majority of their services in that program. And so our current data reveals that our kids are being included at about 28.41%. What you can see from looking at CDE's target is that the metric or the expectation for that was that we were above 35.9%. So we did not meet the state target for that particular indicator. And then just beyond that, just for your knowledge, the state average was 34.45%. So we were quite a bit behind in that area. And that's definitely something that weighs heavily on our hearts, that we are really engaged in work to try to resolve so that we can improve the outcomes for all of our students. If you take a look at this slide here, it's intended to do a couple of things. One, it shows you over the years how substantially we can expect the inclusion rates to increase. So it used to be that every year the state expected you to move up one percentage point in terms of improvement. Now they've really upped the ante, and they're asking us to improve at least 2% points every time that we submit data to them. And again, the reason for that goes back to exactly what Mr. Mizell was sharing, is that we have a ton of research on the subject, and what it all points to is that inclusion really works for kids. All right, again, here we're looking at 5A. So this would be our school age students. And we were expected to reach a target of 53.2%. The statewide average was 58.3%. And we came in at 49.59. So we did not meet that metric. And you can see the same was true for 2020. And so those are things that we really take to heart, and things that we would really like to improve quickly as possible. We want our kids to be well prepared when they leave us. This is what we call our 80%. So in the school age program, we're looking for kids to be included 80% or more of their day. When it's preschool, we're really just looking for kids to be enrolled in that gen ed program and receiving the majority of their services there. So this is our least restrictive environment, LRE K-12 state reporting target for indicator 5B. And you can see here that the target is 20.6%, the statewide average 18.2, and then, I'm sorry. And then we came in at 19.7. So we were a little bit above the state target there. And then for 2020, we were kind of right on par with the state.
So before you go to the next slide, I just have to like help the room recognize, right? The statewide average is never Poway Unified, ever. Like you pick the metric, statewide average A to G rate, statewide college going, statewide, like you pick it, right? Like Poway Unified stands above almost every district in the state. We're an exceptional school district, nationally renowned, right? And well-deserved. And yet, when it comes to this protected class, we don't even meet the statewide average. We trailer it. And I have to remind you in my opening, right? We're number 40 out of 47 states in this measure, California. And we're trailing the statewide average. So we don't have the option, really, to continue to ignore the law. And we don't have the option to continue to ignore the research and the outside audit findings. Like we really do need to lean in a lot harder than we have and create more opportunities for more of our students to learn alongside their non-disabled peers. We have to. So, and Jeanette made the point, and I'm going to accentuate it. When you look at, can you go back up one slide?
Sure.
Okay, so when you look at from 2019 to 2025, like how aggressively the state is increasing this metric, it's an exclamation point, you guys. At the state level, they've grown impatient with the rate of change. We've gone previously a decade with less than a 5% increase requirement, right? And now all of a sudden by 2025, we have to be at 70%, and we haven't even hit 50. So since the FCMAT came out, just to be clear, we have not hit our CDE targets as a district. We have not. So when you hear that chatter out there, I get change is uncomfortable. It raises lots of questions. We still, right, provide our programming through the IEP process, right? So you're protected, and your child is going to receive an individual education plan, tailor-made for him or her. So none of that changes, but the programming, and especially the programming that is more restrictive, is going to be harder to access without a real compelling cause. Make sense? So there are restrictive placements that are absolutely the least restrictive environment for a child, but we believe we are overserving many of our kids in restrictive placements that are unnecessary, and again, are out of alignment with both the law and the research. So on this next slide, Heather's going to share with you guys some of what expanding inclusive practices in PUSD has looked like for the last several years in particular.
So it's important that we don't just think of inclusive practices as a special education only concept. And we want to make sure that we're thinking of inclusive practices as school-wide, community-wide, and on every campus. Things that aren't special education related necessarily, like no place for hate, our district's focus on cultural and racial equity, the supports we provide to our English learners, response to intervention, those early interventions prior to a student requiring special education. For those of you who have students on middle and high school campuses, they have groups like Where Everyone Belongs, where their whole focus is making sure that every student feels included and part of that community. Link Crew would be the high school version of that, where upperclassmen are mentoring younger classmen. in preschool, we have had some of our integrated preschools. And then as Tiffany has shared at the middle and high schools, that strong work towards co-teaching and collaboration across our middle and high schools. So just keeping in mind that it's anything that we're doing on each of our campuses to make each and every student feel included and part of that community, and to make sure that their families are also feeling included and part of those communities. And I guess an additional thing I should add to this slide would be our parent ambassador program that Jody and Deb Wilford are supporting, making sure that parents have a familiar, friendly parent contact face on each of our campuses. That would be an additional aspect of this work. Next slide.
So the pathway forward. This is work. As many of you know, while there's a sense of urgency in it, we're trying to be thoughtful. So we're trying to do this with our staff. We're trying to do this with the community and not to people. In a lot of neighboring districts, they just shut down programs because it saves money. And they comply with the law. Isn't that a wonderful win-win? But in the districts that behave that way, right, we're not improving the student experience. You can't just close programs without building the capacity of the receiving staff to support in a skillful way the students that they're going to be receiving, right? So we've been really, really thoughtful with our inclusive practices team, starting in 2018, to offer professional learning for our staff. There have been hundreds of workshops that have been facilitated, teachers teaching teachers, classified staff invited as well. Instructional assistants, a key partner in all of this, right? So all of our staff have had access to opportunities, right, to learn, to experiment. And then the other thing that's happening in our school sites is, while we started with a model, right, and disbanded the NSH program, we have, concurrent with that, been encouraging school teams to be envisioning that first circle at the top and to start building, not to wait for us, right? So knowing your community and knowing your staff, if you have a team that's willing and ready, and you can create more opportunities for our students with disabilities to learn alongside their typical peers, go, do it. And so what we're seeing is now, concurrent with the closure of the NSH program, lots of other schools trying lots of innovative ways through this envisioning, building, and implementing process. And it's really exciting to see. It's really exciting to see. There's so much of that happening, in fact, that through the Inclusive Practices Advisory Board, we've made the decision to recognize some of these early adopters as inclusive practices schools of excellence. So we put this invitation out here recently to the whole system. Hey, who's doing something great for our students with disabilities? We have 12 schools that submitted applications, 12 schools that we're going to be visiting, walking classrooms, interviewing staff, interviewing case managers and program specialists, 12 schools. So, and of course we can't recognize 12 schools, but we are going to affirm all of them, commend all of them for their effort on behalf of our students. And there will be a few, right, that will get banners, hopefully a story in the newspaper, and a little money to support release time for teachers to collaborate, plan, and to begin work toward that next step, whatever it might be. So lots happening in this space. And my hope tonight was simply to provide for you a little context around the why, right? So when you think of protected classes of people, I'll just close with this. When we decided, right, by law that we had to desegregate our schools, we didn't wait 50 years. We didn't put it to a vote, right? I mean, there were people, white people and black people, who had concerns about desegregating schools, right? And that's not so different from our arena, right? People that are for it, people that are very concerned and frightened by it. But it's a civil rights issue. It's a civil rights issue. So I think of other, Title IX, another example. We didn't wait 50 years to allow girls access to the gymnasium or to the stadium or to the swimming pool. We didn't wait 50 years to improve softball fields. We waited too long, but we didn't wait 50 years, right? And I'll use a more recent and even more controversial, unfortunately, topic. Our transgender students, we didn't wait 50 years to allow them access to the restroom of their choice. We just didn't, right? It's civil rights. It's the law. Somehow, for our students with disabilities, we've given ourselves permission to go slowly. And it's not a Poway thing. It's a national thing, and it's certainly a state of California thing, and it's a Poway thing, right? But it's not a Poway thing alone, or entirely unique. But it is something we need to pay attention to, and it is something that we can't continue to ignore. So I promise to each of you is we'll do this with you. We'll continue to do this with our staff, and we'll keep you informed step by step as we continue to implement new and promising practices. Next slide.
That's it. That's
Okay.
our last slide.
Very good.
All right. So with that, we can move on to the next portion of our agenda.
So next up is the Board of Education Liaison Report.
Maybe answer the questions in the chat before moving on.
Okay.
How about we'll take a look at those, and anyone else that has questions, go ahead and populate those now. We can do it that way. Just because some of these data points I don't have off the top of my head, right? So give me a second with some of these, if you could, please.
In that case, would you like me to go ahead and go? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
that'd be great, Ginger. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Well, good evening. Thanks for inviting me. I'm so glad that the board is now in rotation. I've been looking forward to tonight's report. 4 years ago, when I first decided to run for election, I met with a few mothers with children with special needs, and the frustration was overwhelming because there wasn't really a roadmap for families to understand where to get the needed support. Also, there seemed to be a lack of empathy from the district that was disconcerting, to say the least. And I believe we've come a good distance, and I hope that with a group like yours, we must listen and continue to improve. I mean, we just saw that presentation. There's definitely improvements that need to be made, but we want the educational experience for all kids so they can also excel and be world-class learners. I understand that families with children with disabilities have extra challenges, and raising kids is hard enough. But if you're finding to get the support that your child needs, it makes it even harder. I'm encouraged by the addition of our parent ambassadors because new families or families with new challenges might not know the right questions to ask. And just going onto a website can be very overwhelming. And having a contact at a homeschool really improves the welcome and helps the family to feel included. And speaking of inclusion, like our last report, I spoke with a member of the inclusion committee and discussed their needs. And it's one thing to earn trophies, but it's another thing to understand what's going on in the trenches. They're busy writing curriculum and giving support, but as you know, we need more IAs, and we really need to figure out a way to increase retention and their training. As we work to make all kids feel valued, our inclusion work must also include kids with special needs, religious differences, race, and sexual identity. I observed the community partners meeting that Tiffany King ran, and where our students were able to learn real job experience with our community partners. Thanks to Phil's Barbecue, City of Poway, PUSD, and others providing these work opportunities for our students. Phil's Barbecue representative said that our students are more dependable and hardworking than many of their original staff because we are providing more job coaching and support to help our students with special needs excel. I also wanted to thank Tony Kraft, who employed many of our students and put them through rigorous training in multiple areas of the restaurant business. And now we have 5 of those kids that are employees of PUSD. So I just want to thank staff for working so hard to get these partnerships so that our kids have more opportunities. And then also, I think I've been following Tiffany King around a little bit. I also watch the Pathways to Success just to help parents know what's next after PUSD. And over 100 people attended that workshop to show what kind of need there is out there. And they asked fantastic questions, but also I'm sure many were listening to other people's questions. So the support that PUSD is giving these families is great. And having those connections to other programs in the county will also help assure our students have more opportunities. But my biggest takeaway that was mentioned was that our coaches and teachers are really emphasizing self-advocacy and soft skills that'll serve our kids well, because I know this group relies on that. And it's hard for families to know what questions to ask, as I mentioned earlier. But I think the resources are getting much better than they were at least 4 years ago. And I know you guys have worked diligently for that. Also, just so you know, the Poway Chamber of Commerce has a nonprofit group, and they meet once a month, and there's many supportive groups that are also helping kids and families. I don't know if you guys know, there's a new esports team in all our high schools that has a special needs division. Also, Tony Rubino, who many of you might know, who coaches the Poway Padres, but also has about 100 kids in his basketball program, are always looking to support other programs and always needs volunteers for our special needs community. So on that, thank you again for having me, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing to help our families.
Thank you so much for coming, Ms. Cabaret. We really appreciate it. We're thrilled that we're getting board members to come to the meeting. It means a lot. So with that, we're going to move on to the parent ambassador update. Is Jody or Deborah? I don't think Deborah was here earlier. She was still at another meeting. Jody, do you have an update for us tonight?
I sure do. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can.
All right, excellent. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I wanted to be able to share out that we are in the single digits as far as our recruitment process for parent ambassadors. And to many of us on the screen, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but for many of us on the screen, it is a big deal. So that said, we have some final meetings with school site personnel in the next week to really hone in on the recruitment process for their individual site. So that's great news. The other exciting news is as of this Thursday, yes, St. Patrick's Day, we're hosting our first ever parent, it's called an Alternative Dispute Resolution Summit. And so what we are intending to do there is really bridge the gap between our parent ambassadors and our program specialists and directors of special education. So we're going to have a unified training for the entire day with the overarching theme of relationships and the ability to take others' perspectives. So when we're sitting across from a team member in that IEP team, we're not just assuming, oh goodness, they're not here in good faith and, shame on them for not paying attention, but recognizing that many of our families come in tired. They come in literally sliding sideways after they've just been in 3, 4, 5 different medical appointments. And, likewise with our parents that are coming in to take the perspective of the district employees and the legal obligations that we have related to IEPs. So we will have a joint presentation by Lori Magulak, who is one of our parent ambassadors. She is going to be collaborating with Dr. Laura Mueller, one of our school psychologists. And actually, well, that's her title, but she's a program specialist now. And they are going to be focusing in on trauma-informed practices to use during IEP meetings. So we're excited to have them. We also have a panel of our parent ambassadors who will be presenting on what they wish our district staff knew about being a parent with special needs. So looking forward to this day and being able to report back at the next CAC meeting with all the successes that we have had. Thank you, Heather.
Great, thank you. And that sounds fabulous, Jody. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the CAC chair, so that's me. And Heather, if she has anything else. Mine's really quick tonight. One, I wanted to acknowledge, I know Rosabelle is not in the meeting yet. I don't think I saw her log in anyways, but I wanted to acknowledge that the LCAP that normally falls into myself and the executive team, as well as some of the legislative and governance team. Rosabelle and her community engagement committee or subcommittee is going to help us with that to get a lot more eyes on that document because it is such a lengthy process. So I wanted to give a shout out to Rosabelle and her team because I think that's a great thing because it is a very large document that gets, we get a very short amount of time. So it's a quick read and a large amount of work for the handful of us that have to do it. So it'll be great this year that we have that community engagement team to review that. So I wanted to thank that subcommittee. The second thing, you guys have already heard a handful of people, Tiffany and both Ms. Couverette talked about it. I went to the transition team meeting this week or last week that Tiffany gave. I also went to the other high school one as a ninth grader, but I already have a ninth grader, but I went again because I wanted to see what they were covering. I've been hearing nothing but positive feedback. I think it's fantastic. There's been a lot of people talking about the individual meetings. That's the first time that's ever happened. And I just want to give a huge shout out to both Heather and Tiffany for making that happen. Because I know we had meetings at the beginning of the year about making it a better transition for parents. That's been getting nothing but love everywhere for it. And the meetings are great. In the agenda online, I did drop in the live link to be able to replay those. I can tell you there was so much information in the one I attended that I went back and redid it and watched it again and zoomed to the parts I needed to get. So everybody can grab that relink, but if not, it's at the it's under student support services, special education. It's under the parent resources or the live videos is where they put the live video links. So that's definitely something I would always bookmark on your page. You're going to see a lot of videos because I know a lot of people say that it's hard to find the stuff. The website's really, it's not as hard. It's the student supports, but under those programs is where you're going to find that the parent resources is where they put the video links for the presentations that Tiffany does most of the time. So I would grab onto those. So that's it for my chair report. I don't know if Heather, Marshall, do you have anything besides events that you wanted to cover? Or
no, not at this moment.
Subcommittees. So
yeah, go for it. Yep.
Then your subcommittee is up first tonight. So for events.
Yep. Okay, hi everyone. Heather Marshall here, reporting for events subcommittee. So we've been making some leeway for our May Excellence Awards that will be held. We now have a set date of May 18th. As far as where, that's to be determined still. So I don't have that information as of yet or how that's going to go about, but we do have that date, May 18th. The nominations email was sent out earlier this afternoon, and that will be sent, the link along with the email will be sent out 4 times. And there is a end date of that to have all nominations in for parents to get into the district. The CAC will be March 28th. So there again, they were sent out this afternoon. The end date will be, deadline is March 28th to get those in. So if you're a parent on here, hopefully you got the email and get those nominations in as soon as you can so that we can start racking those together. And we just wanted to get a head jump start on it because it does take a lot of time. Last year we had over 300 nominations come in. So we want to be sure we have plenty of time to go through all of those, and so that my committee has also more time and isn't scrambling quickly like we had to last year. And again, that date was May 18th. So I'm excited, and my subcommittee team will be meeting again, so we should have more to report at next month's meeting. And
Awesome.
that's it for events. Thank you.
Heather, I'm sorry, because you may have said it. Are you planning on doing it like we did last year, where you're going to meet at the schools, or are you looking to do a meeting in person?
So I did meet with Jeanette and Danielle, and we are in the works, depending on the budget, as to whether it will be at each school site like what we did last year. And you know, since we're mentioning the date now, and the date was on the flyer, or I'm sorry, the email as well. We don't know. That's why it's to be determined if there will actually be an actual award ceremony, or if it will be at each school site. But that will be the date regardless.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you while I was trying to get the notes. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. And the next subcommittee meeting, if I'm not missing anybody, is back to me and the governance one. I went over the community engagement. So the next thing on the agenda for governance and bylaws is actually legislative day, which is going to be May the 4th. Which is always, it's really easy to remember because it's May the 4th be with you. I will never forget that, because the first time I went to one in the Capitol, stormtroopers came through the Capitol building. So it's going to be virtual again this year, which is sad, but it's what it is. Jeanette did verify that. And Danielle and Jeanette are working to get all the legislators. I had the list of who we met with last time, and they're getting the updated who's still in office and who's not, to try to work with the meetings. But it will be an all-day thing, and it is during the day. So it does not have to be somebody that's just on the governance team that does meet. Like I said, I was the last person to attend, but it does have to be a CAC actual member that attends. And if you are interested in attending, let me know, and we can, by sending an email to the PUSD email, and then we can do it by random selection if we have multiple people. So think about it, make sure that it is a day that you can be fully engaged, and there'll be a couple pre-meetings with Jeanette and myself and Danielle, but because it is a full day of meetings usually, because for that. So if anybody has any questions, did that make sense? Can I get someone to nod? Yeah, help. But I mean, it was a good day. It was a long day. I really, really enjoyed myself. I would definitely do it again if I had the opportunity. But like I said, if someone else wants to go, that's a member, by all means. Like I said, everybody send the thing in so we can get it going and get prepped for with Jeanette, because it'll be a member and Jeanette that attends. So okay, perfect. So
Heather, question.
Yes.
Sorry. Were any of we kind of skipped a few other committees where there's just nothing to report?
Nobody else asked to be put on the agenda. And when I sent out meetings a few months ago, that we were getting really close to having the long links of the meetings, that we needed to have things put on the agenda.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I'm just writing nothing new to report.
Yeah.
In the notes. Okay.
Yep.
Can I really quickly for membership?
If you have something for membership, yeah, because we do have.
I just want to remind everybody that is here, that is a member, thank you for attending. If you are going to be absent, you need to email PUSD-CAC ahead of time. That way we can account for that. Fortunately, we have a large committee and we meet quorum, but if we had, for some reason, a week when a ton of us couldn't make it, then we wouldn't be able to do any new business. So it's very, very important that you are letting us know. We are understanding. I understand that family emergencies come up. I understand, that things happen. We all, have children or work with children with special needs, so we get it. Just be communicative.
Yeah, and there is in the bylaws, it is a three absence in a year. So we do need to check on some of the attendance.
And after the last meeting, I had sent emails out, and those that are here, thank you. Those that are absent, you will be getting emails from me again.
Awesome. Thanks. But yeah, that is why I skipped over the other. As a reminder to everybody, you do need, if you want something on the agenda, because we're getting so close when we have larger meeting times. So the next Board of Education meeting is going to be on April 7th. Ms. Kavarai, can you correct me? Is that going to actually be live in April, or did you guys vote? I made it. You guys went in closed sessions, and I didn't make it back. I couldn't get back to the YouTube video. Did that
I believe we're trying to be in person.
That's what I thought.
I think there might be a later announcement just to verify that, but I believe that is the intention.
That was what I thought. Okay, so double check that. But April 7th is their meeting. Don't forget, spring break is April 11th through the 17th. And the next CAC meeting will be April 19th at 6:30 via Zoom. So before I close the meeting out, I wanted to do our shout outs and before we adjourn, I wanted to send out a huge thank you to all of the team members that stepped up last month when I disappeared for several weeks. That Heather Marshall and Tristy, I know she's not here tonight. You guys did a phenomenal job. You guys took care of a ton of emails, a ton of extra work. You took a ton of extra meetings in my absence. I really appreciate it. Rosabelle, I know, stepped in as well. It was a huge thank you. So job well done. Thank you to Alex and to David, who are doing the recordings tonight and filling in for those needs. So job well done, and very much thank you. And everybody have a happy St. Patrick's Day on Thursday. So, and meeting we'll adjourn early unless anybody has anything left or any other questions. Nope, we're good. So we're gonna adjourn early tonight.
There's a new question or comment in the chat.
Jeanette.
They're asking, yeah.
Oh, Jeanette, has the CDE offered us assistance or intervention so far? Is that what we're looking at, or are we further down?
Someone just asked if they should ask questions here or somewhere else. It was.
Sorry, I was muted. So I tried to answer as many of the questions as I could. The one that was just recently posted, I'll try and give a quick answer to that too. In short, yes, we fall under what's called assistance monitoring at this point, as opposed to intervention, meaning that there are some issues with our data that we need to resolve, but we're not at what they would consider a heightened level of intervention. So basically what will happen is the special ed department will put together a team, will investigate the reasons why we have problems in our data, and we will work with CDE to develop a plan to redress those issues. That's kind of how the process works. To answer the last question, this is a great place for you to submit your questions. We try to get to all of them in the chat. If you do have a really pressing question that's specific to your own student, I would recommend that you reach out to myself or one of the other directors. So we have Heather Schauder oversees our elementary programs. Tiffany King oversees our secondary programs. You can contact me for all preschool issues. But essentially, we're always here. Send us an email, give us a phone call. If you have a hard time getting the information that you need from your site, we're more than willing to answer your questions.
And you can always email the email the CAC at pusdcac@gmail.com. And before the meetings, we have if you don't want to read out loud or talk during the 3 minutes, there's a form on the website as well as attached to the meeting notice that you can fill out, and we will read it out loud for you, and either anonymously or with your name and information for you. And it's both in Spanish and in English every month. So, and Alex Roosevelt's here. She wanted to be marked a 10. Awesome. So, well, if that's it, we're gonna close out at 7:30. Before Jeanette, you click off for all of us. We need to make sure David has the link or control so he can keep recording it.
Sure thing. I'll stay on with David.
Perfect. Thank you to the members and the staff. Thanks very much, Ms. Couverette, for attending. And great presentation, Greg.